Welcome to the Victorian Parent Council VPC Parent Podcast Series. VPC is a registered charity organisation dedicated to everyone who support parents in educating their children. I'm Jackie Vandervelde, your host today. Good evening and welcome to Victorian Parent Council's VPC Live. My name is Jackie Vandervelde and I'm a consultant and I do work occasionally for VPC. And it's my great pleasure this evening to have Martine Oglethorpe with us. So hello, Martine.
Hello.
Not only is Martine the modern parent, and we've got her here in that capacity this evening to speak to us and in conversation, but she's also on the committee for the Victorian Parents Council. So it's a nice thing to be able to have committee members also involved this way. But Martine, you know, we've had conversations in the past for the Victorian Parents Council's podcast series. And in that, we were actually talking about how we might limit our children's access and time on devices. And now we're in this really weird situation where we're kind of on it all the time. But look, welcome. And I might get you to introduce yourself too and tell us a bit about Modern Parent.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having me. I'm Martine Oglethorpe from the Modern Parent. I am mother to 5 children, aged 20, so 2 adults, 20, 18, 16, 10 years and 8 years. And I have a background in education, a master's in counselling. And so I've been doing this work for, nearly 10 years. And I do a lot of work in schools, working with students and teachers and obviously parents, helping them navigate the digital world in a way that I guess it empowers them to understand the digital world and how it works, and so that they can always try and get the benefits for their children, and also obviously, make sure that they can avoid some of the pitfalls and face some of the challenges in a proactive way. So
we probably really need this conversation now, to be perfectly honest. So it's going to be a little bit different. So learning, living, working in the digital world, because we're doing a lot of that, and particularly in Victoria, I think I'm on the record now as saying I don't often support the Victorian government in a lot of the decisions that they make, but I think giving some certainty for parents and students and schools around learning from home for this term, I think has actually been a really good decision. So lots of stuff is online. So some of the challenges then. So what are the challenges that you're seeing that parents are facing at the moment as they're spending their days living and learning and working from home?
Well, I think there is lots of challenges that parents have found, and I guess it comes down to largely different families and their structures, and then who's working from home, all those sorts of things. So it can be vastly different from one household to another. But I guess on the whole there, for those families who are maybe helping out younger children working from home, they maybe got another older one, a secondary school child as well, I think there's definitely a feeling of overwhelm at sometimes, because if you're trying to work yourself, you're trying to, manage your children's learning, do all the other things that you usually do. It's a lot that has been asked of parents, and so there is a feeling of being quite overwhelmed. I think there's also with that a lot of comparison that comes with that. We're scrolling our social media feeds and we're seeing how amazing some people are doing it, and all the things that they're getting done. And maybe we're not feeling that we're doing, such a good job, or we're struggling with this. And so there's a whole lot of things that, we're comparing ourselves to. And I think there's also a lot of guilt that's coming. We're sometimes having to leave our kids on the screens for more than we would have usually been comfortable with, because we have to do some of our own work, or we've just spent 3 hours trying to do grade 5 work with them, and we need to have a break. So we might then put them on the screens, and a lot of their life has been taken away from them. So that does become the backup. So there's a bit of, of guilt about that. And I think just managing everybody's emotions. We're in these houses with lots of different people, and, we're all trying to, manage a different way of being. So I think, we're having having a few challenges at the moment. There's some lovely things that people are experiencing as well, but I think there's certainly lots of challenges that I'm seeing with my work and with, with the people that I'm working with and following online, that, they do seem to be struggling a bit.
I think the wellbeing question is actually a really important one at this time. So, one of the things that I think, we've been really strong about in the conversations that we've been having, in the parent space is, parents, be parents. You don't have to be the teacher. And actually your role is actually, being mum and dad, but also too that they really do have a lot to do with the tone of wellbeing in the family. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, Martine.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that as parents, we really do set that emotional tone. So how well we're coping is usually largely how well our kids are coping. So if we're stressed and, getting uptight about them, not understanding something, or when they're not sitting and doing their work and we're all getting frustrated with each other, they're going to obviously be frustrated. If we're feeling fearful or anxious, that is going to rub off on them. And there is a lot of uncertainty at the moment. So I think with parents, we have to be careful that we try and also, have a bit of a positive spin on it as well, because as I said, we are setting that tone. But it also means, therefore, that we do need to be taking care of ourselves as parents. I think it's really important that we look after ourselves, because we can't just be there to be, teacher, worker, running household, doing all those things. And as much as we say, it's not homeschooling, it's remote learning, it's learning from home, all those things. I've got to say, as a mother with primary school kids, sometimes I do feel like the teacher, and I know that that's not my role. But certainly when they started out, it is getting a bit easier, but I very much had to be there and sit with them. I had to put them on the apps and show them, transferring between different apps to get, how do we upload this, and just to answer their questions that usually they would be able to ask a teacher. So I think sometimes parents are feeling a little bit of that overwhelm as well, that, well, you said we're not homeschooling, but I cannot do another thing while my children are supposed to be learning. It's different for secondary students. I think they can very much do it on their own, and most parents are finding that they're okay and they can be the support person and parent and all those things. But for those with younger children, I definitely think that they're finding that they still have that role. So I think it's important that, I guess, we try and get across to the parents that, for those younger kids, there's a couple of hours a day is probably going to be all they need. And so trying to take a little bit of that those expectations off us of what our kids can achieve, cut ourselves a bit of slack that, if we don't get everything done one day, it's not the end of the world. These kids will be okay. And so I think it's really important that we try and look after ourselves as well. And that means, finding some time in the day for us as well, because I think, we can't just be there to be, our kids beck and call all day either. We need some time as well. So I think, that self-care and really looking after each other at the moment is really important. And that means that we have to communicate, really well as well. So we have to communicate with our work colleagues if we're working. We have to communicate with our partners if they're in the home or not in the home at the same time, and say, I've got to do this at this time, or I need some time for myself. You might have to do this with the kids or take them out or whatever it is. I think it's really important that we do communicate what our needs are, and also with our kids, communicating with our kids what needs to happen. That I know that, I'm here to help you with things, but I'm also, I might also have a job to do as well, and I might just need some time for me. So it's important we communicate that for our kids too, so that they can understand that as well, that's important.
Really good points. And one of the things that occurred to me too when I was sort of, thinking about how this would be working in a family is that, we've got to share resources. Not every family is going to have a device for every child. There are workspaces where, connectivity is better or worse. And also too, if we need a quiet space to have, a video call, or to have a video, a web conference lesson, there's actually some logistics that need to be worked out in the home as well, plus the adults doing their work too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, there's been times in the last few weeks where we've had 6 people in this house that need to be online at any one time. Now, that's not great for your bandwidth either. But also, trying to find 6+ places for people to sit. It was quite difficult for us because, you know, the Wi-Fi is better at one end of the house, but we don't want to hear each other. And then I might have to do something like this. So I need everyone to move so that I'm not hearing them. And, you know, logistically, it is difficult as well. And as I say, so we've had to communicate really well. Hopefully they've listened that I am on now, so we don't hear them barging in any time, but we may well, because, you know, it's quite often that I'm on, so they're sometimes forgetting. But, you know, I think, you know, we have to, communicate with each other about, you know, what needs to happen when, and compromise a little bit, and just share some of those resources as well, because there might be times when, you know, we can't all be doing the same thing at once.
And also too, I think sharing that timetable and perhaps the resource, you know, limitations, or with the school too, so that they understand, you know, what it is that you're working with in your particular household.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I've had friends or people that follow me say things like, oh, I just, you know, there's no way I can do this because I can't sit with my child for those 3 hours because I've got a call. And I, you know, and I said, just shoot them an email, just, you know, a simple email that, you know, I've got to do something at the moment. We'll get to this later or tomorrow or whatever. You know, the teachers are also learning about all of this stuff. That, you know, most of the teachers that I've worked with have been fantastic, and they are, you know, they're very receptive to my kids just saying, you know, sorry, Mum needs to do a Facebook Live now. I have to go and play on the computer game because she said, you know, she needs quiet. So, you know, those are just our new reality. It's just, you know, changing it up but yeah, letting the teachers know that, you know, we can't all work the timetable. And thankfully, my kids' school have been pretty good with that. They're just, well, can do this work at any time of the day, which I think is really helpful for little kids, because, you know, and again, kids work better at different times as well, so that can be helpful.
That's right. And I think too, you know, what we're forgetting is in this story too, is that, you know, a lot of our teachers are actually also have their own children at home as well, so they're working and being, you know, and being mum and dad the teacher at the same time, you know. That's that's
it is. That's what I mean. Everybody's trying new things, and we're all learning, and, you know, a bit of trial and error and changing things up as we go. I know my first day I sat down and I honestly thought I could sit in the middle of the kitchen table and have my 8-year-old and 10-year-old either side. I set up my computer and I thought, this will be good. I can do some work and they'll just ask me the odd question. And I think after 30 seconds, I realized this is not how it's going to work. So, you know, I very quickly had to change my whole mindset, had to change my whole plan and think, okay, maybe I need to spend a couple of hours in the morning with them. And then I can concentrate on doing my work when I can do it properly, without, you know, being interrupted every 5 seconds.
Which is going to happen, right? Martine, I think the emotional level, I think that's actually a really important piece for parents. So what are some of the things that we need to do at that emotional level as parents?
Well, I think for parents, we need to firstly run our own race, very much look at our own situations, because, as I said, we could be having 2 parents at home that are trying to work. We could have had a parent that has lost their job, or both parents that have lost their jobs, or we might have, you know, kids with additional needs, or we might, you know, have toddlers and a baby and a primary school, and, you know, there could be all different situations. And I think we have to be really careful that we, as I said at the start, that we don't compare to what other people are doing. And that can be difficult when we're, you know, on our group chats with our friends, or we're scrolling our social media feeds and we're seeing, you know, what everyone else has done, or even looking at the class discussion about what all the other kids have achieved. And so I think it's really important that we use this time to just run our own race, stay in your own lane, and work out what is going to work for your family right now, and decide, you know, how that's going to look. For me, about face and think, well, this is how it's got to look now. We have to change things up, and you know, I've had to include my husband to do different things than he would usually be doing. And so, you know, it's about really looking at your own situation. So running your own race, and be really realistic with your expectations of what you think you're going to achieve. And as I say at the start, I know, you know, people thought, well, you know, that if we're, you know, learning from home, you know, we have to have our little kids sitting down from, you know, 9 till 3:30, you know, and that's not realistic. And at school, it's not realistic. They don't do that at school either. They might do a maximum of 3 hours of, you know, solid work, there's a lot of other stuff, and you've got to think that a teacher's there managing 25, 30 kids. If you only have to manage one, you're going to get a lot of stuff done in a lot shorter time. Granted, sometimes they don't, they're a little bit easily distracted at home because it's not their natural learning environment, I guess. But, so I think it's really important that we just realize what are the expectations that, we are realistic to achieve, and look at those. And yeah, I guess looking after our own well-being, making sure we get plenty of time for exercise, getting outside, getting fresh air. I know, as lots of people, we're doing all of these Zooms all the time, and we're online, and we're having, online meetings, and it's quite taxing on the body, both physically and emotionally. And I think it's, I know myself, I usually have to, go out for walks every time that, I've been online for a while. And I think that's really important, that we get out and have some fun as well, and do some fun stuff with your kids. If it's all going pear-shaped, if your kid's having a tantrum because they can't understand their maths, or they can't, open the app, or they can't, then it's no good trying to pursue that if everyone's uptight and cranky and crying. And so, when we've got close to some of those times, I say, okay, let's leave it. Let's go outside. We're going to go and kick the footy or bounce the ball, or do whatever, just to try and give ourselves a bit of a refresher, and go back when we're all ready. So I think we just need to cut ourselves a little bit of slack and look after ourselves and our well-being, because I think the well-being of these kids at the moment too is crucial, and that's the other stuff they can they'll catch up on, but I think we need to be looking after them, because a lot has changed for them right now, and there's a lot of stuff that they're missing out on. So I think we need to just be a bit mindful of that as well.
Yeah, no, that's all true. I think one of the things, part of a conversation that I was having today was parents just taking time with their family at this stage to say, look, we've got this sort of enforced pause now. And let's look at what's really good that's happening with our family, and at this time do more of that, be really conscious that these are great times now, where we actually kind of have to connect, we don't have a lot of the other distractions around us to take away to take away from that positive. So there's some really good stuff that can come from this, and that's an important part of wellbeing, and it's a great way to sort of strengthen family connections too, because we are in the normal, whatever the old normal, we are flat out all the time. That's we're constantly running around, and so now when we don't need to, it's actually quite lovely. I'm to be honest, I'm actually really quite enjoying it. I had a little bit of cabin fever about a week ago, but I'm feeling quite okay with it. It's not there's some really good stuff that's coming from it.
And I think a lot of parents have also spoken to me about how you would think that children would be driving each other crazy and stuff, but I've actually noticed a lot, and even with my own kids, that they're actually getting on really well when they've got no one else to play with, and despite living in each other's pockets, it's been nice to see them connect in different ways. For example, my kids are very busy. They are playing lots of sports, so our weekends are running around all over the shop. So it's been nice for them to have that pause, as you say, and because we've been going to the park most days, they'll pair off and chat and do things that they probably never don't have the chance to do. So there's certainly lots of positives. So I think we again want to try and focus on them. So again, we're setting that tone of this can be a good thing, and there's certainly challenges, and we're but I think we want to try and just be realistic about those challenges and try and focus on some of the good things too.
When you're talking about parents looking at their Facebook or their social media feeds and seeing how wonderful how beautifully everybody else is doing this, I always question that. I always think, everybody else is living the same dream that we're living at the moment. So, the reality is that maybe that might be a couple of moments in time where everything was working really well. The reality is that people are, everybody would be struggling along the same lines that if you're feeling you're struggling, there's probably other people that are struggling too.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing some good things and some great achievements that you've made. If you have managed to, make scones with your kids that day, I don't mind seeing them. That's nice. But, I think, we also have to realize that there was probably might have been a tantrum before that or after that, and everybody's, dealing with the same sorts of things. I think some people I've noticed recently have said, oh, I thought I was going to achieve all of these things, and I've realized I haven't got time or the motivation or whatever it is. And so whereas all these people seem to be taking up these new hobbies or things, and I don't know that that's especially the case either. I think now that we've sort of settled into this as way of life, the way of life just happens again. So we do the things that are important to us, and we prioritize things that are important to us. So I think we do have to just be very, very open-minded when we look at what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. Another thing too that I've noticed, Martine, be interested in your thoughts on this, is that schools, when we first moved to this learning from home, there was a lot of work. Like the schools were sending a lot of work, but now it seems to have tapered back a bit to something that's a lot more achievable. I think that, which I think is probably more realistic, but it's certainly not as heavy. I think there was a lot being sent out in that sort of rush to get material out to families really quickly. Is that something that you've noticed as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as we said at the start, schools, this is new for schools as well, and new for teachers. So they all just had to, find their feet for a while. And good schools communicated that too. They said, this is, we're just learning, please, give us feedback. And largely, I think the feedback at the start was, this is too much. Because it did fall on the parents, on the the hands of the parents. So to try and facilitate all of that, and I think they were finding that it was a bit overwhelmed. But I certainly think it's cut back. And but in saying that, I was speaking to a teacher just recently who said it is difficult to find that balance, because you do have some parents saying, "Give us more, there's not enough," and other parents saying it's way too much. So, it's always going to be, you're never going to please everyone, I guess. And that's why I just try and stress to parents, your child, what their threshold is, and when they're learning and when they're not. And if you're constantly trying to push them to have extra stuff when it's not working, there's not a lot of learning going on. So maybe look at some other ways that they can be learning, around the house as well, rather than just, with their books and iPads.
That's right. And break it up. I mean, break up the time. I've often said that, 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of concentrated for little ones, that's about it, right? And then you need a break. Because that's exactly what would be happening in a classroom. They would not be sitting there for an entire hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. That'd actually be broken up. Some things that we need to do at that emotional level, that keeping parents calm. I think we've sort of we've spoken about some of those things, but on a practical level too, the routine is actually really important, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I guess I also differentiate between routines and rituals, and then having schedules. Now, I think a schedule is good. You can outline, this is roughly how our day is going to go. But I think it's also really important to make sure that that's very flexible, and that it may not go that way, and that's okay too. But I think it's important for kids to be able to see a plan laid out, or some people just like to verbalize it. This is what we'll be doing this in the morning, then we have lunch, or then we go to the park, or then we whatever. And some like to live by a lot more stringent outlines. So certainly having some sort of structure is really good at this time, because there is so much uncertainty for everyone at the moment. So I think us and our kids need to know that there are some certain things that happen. And that's where I also think, just aside from the plan of your day, I think just having some of those routines and rituals that happen are really, really important at the moment. I think they're always important, but I think really important at the moment, because there is so much uncertainty for children at the moment about, when are we going back? When do I see my friends? When does basketball start again? And we haven't really got those answers for our kids. So what we can do though is provide, and those things are like, when we get up, and whatever you do, your routine is in the morning, whether it's you read for a bit, or you have breakfast together, or you do a bit of exercise, or whatever, you read a book together at night. all of those little routines that you do help to just provide that security for kids to know that, this is stuff that still happens every day. And maybe you might even create new routines for this time. I know for me, I like to go out and get my coffee in the morning, and I've been buying one for my 16-year-old, so because he starts his day a bit earlier, and that's just been a nice little routine that we've done. And so I think we can try and make some new routines for this time, and I think that really helps just give some of that certainty, that stability about that some things are just the same. So certainly we can have structure around our day, but make sure that it's a little bit flexible too. If it's all going pear-shaped, we can change that structure a little bit. But it's a rough guide for them. And as I say, some kids need that a lot more than others. So your children, your family, how they run and what works. If you're a chart type of family and we like those sorts of things laid out, then that's probably going to be really helpful for them. So look at what you think is going to work for your kids as well.
Mm-hmm. I know I've heard you say work in sprints.
Yeah.
Not marathons.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's yeah. Well, I guess that's referring to what you were just saying before, that we can't start our day and say, well, I'm going to do 3 hours of my work and you're going to do 3 hours of your work, and then it's got to be little snippets. And as I say, for all of our concentration, our kids can't concentrate for that long. We know that. So as you said, give them one task to do, and then you can have a break. At school, as you said, I know my kids have a fruit break at 9:30 or 9:40. It's only been 40 minutes and they're already having a break, and then they have another one at 11 for recess. So there are lots of breaks during their day. So it's important we remember that, but also remember for ourselves. I'm not going to get the 3 or 4 hour stint of sitting at my computer like I would when my kids are at school. So I have to allocate some time where I do that deeper work, whether it's writing or whatever, and know that that's just going to be, I can do that in short bursts, but I can't expect to be able to sit, for 3 or 4 hours while, I have a household full of kids. So, it's about just breaking up our day into little sprints and getting what we can get done quickly, and more effectively too. So.
Yeah, I think, and downtime is really important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't be just doing everything around our work, their work, all that sort of stuff. So, as I said, we have a few hours work in the morning. Then we always all have downtime at some point together, so that we can get outside together, take the dog for a walk, do all those sorts of things, and then the kids have regular time. Go out for a bike ride, go and shoot some hoops, whatever. So. It's important that we all have that downtime, and at the end of the day, if it's whatever your downtime is, if it's sitting in front of Netflix, if it's doing a jigsaw puzzle, whatever it is, make sure that you also have that time, because just like in a normal times, we need that downtime at the end of the day too. So because we don't have those cut off points of leaving the office or all those sorts of things, we have to make sure that we're creating them as well.
Yeah, Dan, that's a really important point. I know that's something that I do not do very well at all. I work from home. So I've got to. I need to sharpen up my act on that front. That's for sure. Thank you to our guest speaker. We hope you enjoyed today's topic. Want to know more about this podcast and other VPC podcasts? Please visit the VPC website vicparentscouncil.vic.edu.au and leave a review. We would also welcome you to contact us if you would like to be our guest, or if you have a topic around parenting and education. Thank you to Melbourne singer Emma Sidney for her permission to use her soundtrack, Cherish. Until next time, thank you for listening.